Live from Denver, Colorado, the mile high city. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You name it, we're there. Very easy to find. It's Saturday morning. Welcome to the weekend edition. And of course, as usual, we have a lot to talk about today. Olympics are winding down. The Olympics basketball team, the Americans team, got themselves a gold medal yesterday. We'll be talking a little bit about that. But generally speaking, baseball is still the king as far as we're concerned. So we're going to be talking about Major League Baseball. We have 3 games on tap for today to tell you about games that are coming on later today. The Seattle Mariners against the New York Yankees, the New York Mets against the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Miami Marlins up against our Colorado Rockies right here in Denver, Colorado. So, welcome to the show. We're also going to talk about Canadian football. We talked about it yesterday, gave you some handicapping tips on betting on Canadian football because you understand some very important situations happened. Up in Canada, the legislature voted to allow sports betting. So it's going to be coming up big. But of course, even though you're living in the United States, if that's where you're living, no problem. You can bet on CFL games at all. But there's some little things you have to know about the CFL, the Canadian Football League, in order to try to come ahead if you're betting on those games. So that's the story for today. So let's get started. Yesterday, the stuff that went on yesterday, not much going on. We had the Olympics, and of course, we have Major League Baseball. The U.S. men's basketball team beat France 87 to 82. They got the gold medal game, avenging that opening game loss that they lost in the beginning of the Olympics. Team USA didn't cover. They were 13-point favorites in this game. And of course, the total stayed under 175 and a half points. So as far as the men's basketball team is concerned, gold medal once again. Meanwhile, the Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went 12-3. Really did very well yesterday. The only upsets were their big ones. The Angels in 10 innings beat the Dodgers as a plus 190 on the money line as it was 190. 10 innings, Angels beat the Dodgers. The D backs at plus 190 beat the Padres, and the Twins at plus 178 on the money line beat the Astros. So the favorites now lead in this season so far. They're at 58.6%. And just to give you an idea, this little method or system that we've been talking about all along, we had 3 plays yesterday. We had 2 winners and 1 loser, and the total there so far within the month of August is 59%, 17 and 10, 17 plays, 10 winners. So you can see how following the pros, you're right up there. Now, of course, the pros don't only bet the favorites, they also bet underdogs along the way as well. So that's not a bad average to be at. 58.6 as far as the favorites are concerned. And as far as the line movement or the pros are concerned, they're at 59% right now. So kind of give you an idea as to how that is working out. So that's really the main things that happened yesterday. Anything worthwhile that has to do with gambling or wagering, which is what our most important idea is. That's what we're following. We don't much care who wins or loses, just whether or not they cover or not. For instance, like we said, the Dodgers were big favorites in this game yesterday. Went 10 innings. The Angels won. They were plus 190 on the money line. And also, like we said in the Olympics, France was a 13-point favorite. They didn't cover. However, they did win the game 87 to 82, and the total stayed under 175. So that's everything that happened yesterday. We're going to take our first break. And if you've listened to the show before, you know we do take 3 breaks within the show. Each one is of a 1-minute duration. And of course, three of them. We're going to do number one now, get that one out of the way. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at three of the games that we talked about earlier that are on tap for today in Major League Baseball, trying to give you an idea as to how the line movement is going and in which direction the pros are going in those games as well. So let's get that first break out of the way, and we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo coming to you live from the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of the major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're very, very easy to find. By the way, if you want to get a hold of us, it's very simple as well. Just simply send an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. Be happy to hear from you, anything you have to say, any comments you have. Like we always say, we've been doing the show for over 5 years. We're kind of in that bubble. We're doing the same thing over the past 5 years, maybe making a little tweak here and there. And whenever we do make a tweak, it's usually because the listeners get in touch with us through email or whatever and give us some thoughts and ideas and maybe some changes we should make. And if it looks reasonable, plausible, we do it. If it works, it's fine. If it doesn't, we drop the idea. We go back to the old way we were doing it. So anyway, that's the story. Easy to get a hold of us. Once again, the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. So Major League Baseball, like we say, it's still king right now. The Olympics are kind of winding down, going down to the finals right now. Not much more going on. Should be over in the next few days. And then, of course, we can start concentrating on not only the NFL, but also on the CFL, the Canadian Football League. And we'll go into more detail on some tips on handicapping that CFL. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the three games we have on tap for today. Let's take a look and see which direction the line movement is going. And of course, once we determine that, it'll help us determine in which direction the pros are going in these games. The first game we're going to look at is at 1:05 in the afternoon. That's Eastern time, of course. The Seattle Mariners, 58 and 53, down at the Yankee Stadium against the Yankees, who are 60 and 49. The Yankees have taken the first two games of this non-division series that's going on. They won the opener 5-3. They were minus 190 home favorites in that game, and they won again on Friday night 3-2 as minus 170 home favorites. Now, invigorated by that trade deadline and the players that they got, the suddenly streaky Yankees have now won 4 straight games, and they've won 7 of their last 8 games. So in this afternoon's rematch with Seattle, Seattle comes in with their right-hander, Chris Flexen. He's 10-5 with a 3.75 ERA. And the Yankees come out with their lefty Andrew Heaney. He's 6-8 with a 5.42 ERA. Now, as we take a look at this line, it opened with the Yankees, a minus 190 home favorite as a start, and the Mariners a plus 170 road dog. Now, the public says the line is way too high for a good pitcher like Flexen, and they're grabbing the Mariners at a big plus money, that big plus 170, and may even go higher. However, despite all this lopsided betting, we've seen the Yankees become more of a favorite, going from being a minus 190 up to minus 200. And what this means is the pros are doing what we call fade the trendy dog. Fade the trendy dog. It's an expression in the business where we say we kind of fade away from the dog that is everybody's putting their money on, even though it's the underdog. Most of the general public is on this dog. It's a contrarian favored value in New York. Now, non-division home favorites who come off of a win are at 60.5% so far this season. Now, home favorites that are minus 200 or more are at almost 71%. Home favorites minus 200 on the money line or more are at 71% this season. The Yankees are 4-1 against the Mariners. New York is hitting 236, which ranks them around 16th in the league. And the Mariners are hitting at 222, which ranks them 30th, which happens to be dead last in the league. So in this first game, Yankees against the Mariners. Yankees that look like they've gotten hot all of a sudden. But of course, if you do like this game and you like the Yankees to bet, get ready to lay that $200 number against winning 100, minus 200. And before you know it, by 1 o'clock Eastern time, it might even go up even further. But again, the pros, they're on the New York Yankees in this particular game. Meanwhile, at 4 o'clock, the other team across town, the New York Mets, of course, they're out of town because the Yankees are at home, are in Philadelphia, not too far away. The Mets are 56-53. The Phillies are 57-53. Now, the National League East race is tightening, and these divisional teams are trending in totally opposite directions if you look at what's happened lately. The Phillies have won 6 straight games. Now they lead the division by half a game over the Mets, who've lost 2 straight and are just 3-7 over their last 10 games. The Phillies won last night's opener 4-2. They were a minus 113. That's low as home favorites on the money line. In this late afternoon rematch for today, the Mets start their right-hander Taylor Megill. He's 1-1 with a 2.68 ERA. And Philadelphia comes back with Ranger Suarez, who's 5-3 with a 1.04 ERA. Now, as we look at this line, it opened with New York listed as a short minus 110 road favorite, and Philadelphia a plus 100 home dog, because the public, they see that this is a toss-up. You got 2 evenly matched teams, and they don't know who to back, which way to go. But the pros, as always, they always make up their minds, and they're leaning on the Phillies that are really red hot right now. As we've seen Philadelphia flip from being a plus 100 dog to being a minus 108 home favorite. So they were flipped around primarily because the pros have jumped on Philadelphia. Now, short home favorites. These are home favorites that are minus 135 or less. And if they're coming off of a win, are at 57% so far this season. So if you would have bet only those teams, if you just took like the games that were being played, and you said, I'm just going to bet short home favorites, teams that are minus 135 or less, and they won their game before, they're at 57%. You'd be up 12 units, about 12 units, depending on how much you bet. The Phillies are 32 and 21 at home. The Mets are 23 and 33 on the road. The Mets are just 12 and 22 against lefties. The Phillies are 40 and 34 against the righties. So in this game, the pros are on the Phillies. They flipped them around from being a dog on the money line to being a home favorite. Not much. They were a plus 100 as a dog. They wind up at the last time we looked at it as a minus 108 home favorite. Now, because Philadelphia has won 6 games in a row, it comes into another little system that we've been talking about, and that has to do with winning and losing streaks. Now, we talked at great length about this for the past couple of weeks because we're trying to keep an eye on these situations, trying to give you another type of betting situation that you might be interested in. You may not want to bet a particular team or a game or the run totals. However, you may see that a team is either on a winning or a losing streak, and you may want to get involved in that. Of course, the important thing about that situation is that you have to set the number yourself. We put the number at 6. At the zone here, we believe that 6 games, whether they're won or lost, is a streak. So in this situation, this Mets Phillies game, the Phillies are at 6. They've won their last 6 games. So that kind of puts them into that category. So if you think that if you're looking at a winning losing streak and you like our number of 6, you might want to look at the Phillies as being on the plus side, or you might think that, hey, they've already won 6 games. I think they're going to lose this one, but they're on a winning streak right now. As far as we're concerned, the number 6, 6 games is our number. So this particular game falls into our category. But again, it's up to you. You may want 8. You may say, oh, I want them to win 10 games or lose 10 games in a row before I consider it a streak. Again, that's totally up to you. But for the sake of consistency, we're saying 6. We've gone through all the stats in the past. We've noticed 6 is a pretty good number, 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in that area. This way you'll get enough action on it. Otherwise, if you wait for 10, 12, or those numbers up there, they're more conservative. There's no doubt about it. But you're not going to get as many plays because it's not that often that teams do win 10 or 12 games in a row or lose 10 or 12 games in a row. So you can look at this game, Philadelphia, 6 games in a row, kind of falls into our category as a winning losing situation. So that's the story there. We have one more game to take a look at, and that's the Miami Marlins against the Colorado Rockies. But in the meantime, let's get that second break out of the way before we talk about that. And when we do, like I said, we'll talk about that, and we'll also going to be talking about the Canadian Football League, give you some thoughts and ideas if you're thinking of betting that as you wait for the NFL season to come along in about a week or so. Okay, so let's take that break, and we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. It's Saturday morning. Of course, maybe you're someplace where it's Saturday afternoon, but We're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Monday through Friday, we're here at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. in the afternoon on Eastern Time as well, of course. Now, we're talking about baseball. Let's take a quick look at the first two games we talked about, the Yankees and the Mariners. In that particular series, the pros are on the Yankees. And if you happen to like the Yankees in this game, who are red hot right now, really, all of a sudden they've really caught fire with all those new players they picked up in free agency. But you're going to have to lay a lot of wood. They're at minus 200. They may even go higher than that before game time. And also, the New York Mets against the Philadelphia Phillies, something a little closer, two teams more evenly matched. But now Philadelphia is in first place. They're a half a game ahead of the New York Mets. But the pros, they like the Phillies in this game. And this just happens to be a game. If you're interested in winning and losing streaks, the Philadelphia Phillies are right now on a 6-game winning streak. It's up to you to decide which way you want to go. We're just bringing that to your attention. Meanwhile, at 8 o'clock tonight, you have the Miami Marlins right here in Denver, Colorado, playing the Colorado Rockies. The Marlins are 47 and 63. Meanwhile, the Rockies, they're 49 and 61. They took care of business last night, the Rockies did. In the first game, they crushed the Marlins 14-2. In that game, they were minus 170 as a home favorite. Now, in tonight's rematch, Miami comes in with their newly acquired left-hander, Jesus Luzardo, who's 1-0 with a 5.4 ERA. And Colorado, well, they come back with their left-hander, Austin Comber, 8-6 with a 4.04 ERA. Now, as we look at this line, it opened with the Rockies, a minus 142 home favorite, and the Marlins a plus 132 road dog. Now, the pros, they're riding the Rockies, who are kind of hot also. They steamed Colorado up from minus 142 up to minus 155 on the money line. Keep this in mind. Non-division home favorites. Non-division. That's what this is, a non-divisional game. And the Rockies are a home favorite. All right, almost 62% as far as a win percentage for this season. Now, there's also what we call a sweet spot, where a non-division home favorite comes in between minus 150 and minus 175. Now, they're at almost 66% in that situation. Colorado is 36 and 21 at home this season. Miami, well, they're just 20 and 36 on the road. Colorado is 18 and 14 against lefties. Miami is 12 and 22 against lefties. Now, Colorado is 17 and 7 as a favorite so far. Miami is 29 and 46 as a dog. Now, also the Rockies, they're going to rely on their hitting once again. Colorado's hitting 247, ranks them as the 8th best team in baseball. Miami is hitting at 235, which ranks them in 21st position. We could be looking at another high-scoring game. Coors Field total is 10.5, with the over being juiced up to minus 120 on the money line. So looking on the over in this particular game. So the pros in the game between the Miami Marlins and the Colorado Rockies are on the Rockies as well. Once again, the 3 games on tap for today. Just review them real quickly. Seattle against the Yankees. Pros are on the Yankees, but keep in mind, you're going to be laying some heavy wood. That over minus 200 on the money line as we speak right now, may even go higher once we get closer to game time. So keep that in mind. Now, also, so you're going to have to lay a lot of wood. Not saying that it's a bad idea. If they win, it's a great idea. If they don't, then you're laying $200 to win $100. Not a very good idea in that direction. Meanwhile, at 4 o'clock, you got the Mets against the Phillies down in Philadelphia. Phillies took over first place from the Mets by winning last night. Phillies are now a half game in first place. And the pros in this particular game are on those red hot Philadelphia Phillies. Also, this is also a situation where Philadelphia has won 6 games in a row, so they qualify. If you're looking at 6 as being your number, we think of it that way, as being a streak. That is a 6 game winning streak. Just bringing it to your attention. You can either bet with it or you can bet against it. You can think that maybe coming to an end right now, or you may say, hey, they're so hot, they're going to keep on going to number 7. That's up to you to decide. And finally, at 8 o'clock, you got the Miami Marlins playing right here in Denver against the Colorado Rockies. And in that game, the pros are on the Colorado Rockies. So that's a roundup of the 3 games. And like I said, this little system, method, whatever you want to call it, where we follow the line movement, and then we see in which direction the pros are going, kind of letting you know what it is. Once again, leaving it up to you to decide. Yesterday, we had 3 games that fit into this method. Marlins against the Rockies. The Rockies won that game, which was a winner. Rangers against Oakland. We had Oakland in that game. They beat the Rangers. And of course, the Angels in the Dodgers game, we had the Dodgers. And of course, they did lose. So we had 2 winners and 1 loser overall so far in the month of August. We've had 17 plays. We had 10 winners. That equates to 59% if you're keeping a record on that. And just to give you an idea as to how this has been going, the day before we had 2 plays, and in that situation, we had both winners. The day before that, we had 3 plays, 2 winners and a loser. Then the day before that, we had 2 losers and 1 winner. And it's kind of been running that way throughout the whole week so far this week. So it's up to you. We tell you what it's all about. You decide which way you want to go. Just something else to know, so that if you're using a system and you're very happy with it, but sometimes you come across a game like that Mets Philadelphia game where it's a toss up. Either team can win. They're both very strong, good pitching going. Both teams, one's going in a down streak, other one in the up streak, if you want to look at it that way. But if you're using that as a system, perhaps by knowing which way the pros are going, if you're uncertain which way you want to bet the game, the information we give you about the pros may be enough to put you over to go in that direction or against that direction. Totally up to you. So let's get the final break out of the way. And when we come back, we're going to talk football, Canadian football, give you some tips and ideas on handicapping Canadian Football League games. We'll be back in the zone right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We covered baseball. We'll kind of review those three games once again for you before we get finished with the show. But in the meantime, let's talk football. We're talking about Canadian football because not only did NFL football come back on Thursday, okay, in the Hall of Fame game, between Pittsburgh and Dallas. Again, that Pittsburgh won pretty handily, okay. But also up in Canada, our friends in Canada, their Canadian Football League started out with the Winnipeg Jets and the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Blue Bombers from Winnipeg, of course. So now that Canada has passed their legislation that is allowing betting on football or baseball or any sport that they happen to have going. And it doesn't have to be just in Canada, it could be in the United States as well. But of course, by being a resident of the United States, you can bet in these games as well. It doesn't really make any difference where in the world, where on the planet something has taken place. If there are odds on it and there's a sports book ready to make those odds and take your money, by all means, it's available to you as well. So the Canadian Football League has started. There are certain things you have to look for in the CFL that is a little different from watching and betting on NFL games. The first thing you should watch out for is first of all, there are 9 teams in the league. They have 4 new coaches out of those 9 teams, 3 new starting quarterbacks. So let's take a look at some thoughts and ideas about what's going on. The Canadian Football League is kind of considered a wide open, high scoring league by most people that watch it, that kind of write about it. But while the NFL scoring has really gone up pretty much in the past few years, the Canadian Football League, their scoring has really gone down a little. It's kind of gone the other way, where they were the big high scoring team and the NFL wasn't. Now it's kind of leaning a little more in the other direction. In fact, since the start of the 2014 season, the unders have a record of almost 58%. If you go a little deeper, look further, games that show totals of 55 or higher, the under is at almost 64%. So you can see the difference there as far as the NFL games are concerned. The total number of points is starting to go up. Meanwhile, in the Canadian Football League, the total number of points is starting to go down. And then there's also a road field advantage. So if you look at the home road results for the last 7 seasons in Canada, in only 1 year have the home teams finished with the record of better than 500 against the spread, because there's been safety in betting on road teams as they're at almost 55% against the spread. So, and this has been that way since the start of the 2013 season. Okay. Home teams have gone 325 and 257 in that same time period, but the point spread has proven to be more than the great equalizer. It provides a nice betting cushion for the road teams and betting on them. And also, road teams also have another advantage. Big underdogs have always enjoyed the same situation. Going back to 2010, underdogs in the Canadian Football League of 4.5 points or more are at 237, 189 against the spread. If you look at it as a percentage, it's almost 56% against the spread. That's a nice return on investment for just a very simple system. All you have to do is look at the game. If they're 4.5 points or higher as far as being a dog, hey, they won almost 56% of the time. Wow. There's also what we call the combo system. If you're looking for a narrower, more tighter betting angle, use a combination of all these concepts. You consider consistently backing those road underdogs of 4.5 points or more. especially when they're coming off a victory. Makes it even stronger. Going back as far as 2013, teams that fit into this category over 4.5 points as a dog, but they won the game before, they're almost at 59%. Remember, in football, 52.3% is your break even point. Again, it's a simple concept, okay, and it can do very, very well for you. It has been, and really, you just don't know what's going to happen, really, of course, but we're talking about trends. We look at trends on this show. That's what we spend our time looking at. Trends give you an idea as to what the trends, which direction they're going. This happens to be a trend that seems to be doing very, very well, and it's just something to think about. So if you want to bet the Canadian Football League, a really good system to look at is taking a look at the line, the underdogs of 4.5 points or higher. And if they're coming off a game that they won previously, they're up around almost 59% over the past 10 years. So that's a good thing to kind of look at. So that's the story on the Canadian Football League. We talked about it yesterday. We talked about it on Friday, like I said. But, many times we have different listeners on Saturday that we have during the week and vice versa. So I just want to make sure that you weekend guys who don't listen during the week get that information, because it might be of some benefit for you while you're sitting back and doing your homework on the NFL season that's coming up soon. You don't want to bet on pre-games because, they're a toss-up. Who knows who's going to be playing? So if you're looking for a little action, Canadian Football League, if your sports books happen to handle them, by all means, kind of take a look at them, because they can be profitable as well. So now, once again, just taking a look at the 3 baseball games on tap for today. The first game we looked at was the Seattle Mariners against the New York Yankees in New York. The Yankees, who have finally gotten hot once again, doing very, very well. But if you like the Yankees in this game, the pros do, but you're going to have to lay some heavy wood, somewhere around 200 on the money line on the minus side, of course. And then, of course, you got the Mets and the Phillies, a lot much more closer game there. You got the Mets, who lost last night to Philadelphia. By losing that game, they are now 1/2 game out of first place in that game. So now that you see how that's going, Phillies are hot. They've won their last 6 games. The Mets have been kind of in the doldrums lately, so they've lost their hold on first place temporarily. So that's one game to look at as well. The pros are on the Phillies in that game. You're not going to be laying as much wood if you happen to like Philadelphia. And also, keep in mind that Philadelphia has now won 6 games in a row, so they kind of qualify for our little method or system for taking a look at winning and losing streaks of 6 games or more. And then finally, you got the Marlins and the Rockies right here in Denver, Colorado, and the pros are on the Denver Rockies in that game. So that's the story for today and tonight. I want to thank you very much for listening. And just a reminder, we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here every Monday through Friday, every Saturday and Sunday, 7 days a week, live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, coming to you from Denver, Colorado. And of course, we're also podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're on most of them as well. So now that the weekend is here, I hope you have a very pleasant weekend. And of course, if you're betting, I most certainly hope that you have a profitable weekend as well. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, I'm Chris Pardo. Have a very great weekend. And of course, like I said, if you're betting, I hope you have a profitable weekend as well. Goodbye, everybody.